So in this video, we're going to take a look at edge extrusion. So we've got the handle from our sword from the Z Modeler video. And under the subtool menu, I'm going to append a polymesh star into this. I'm going to Alt-click on it to select it, and then press the W key to bring up the transpose gizmo. Press the gear, and we'll turn this into a polyplane. Now you're not going to be able to see anything on that polyplane as it stands because we don't have double-sided turned on. So also, let's turn on solo so you can see it. It's sitting down inside the handle. But if we look at the back side, we can't see it. So make sure you're looking at it from the front. And I'm going to use the transpose gizmo just to move it up so it's sitting where the blade should start. Now I'm going to go to B for brush, Z for Z Modeler, select the Z Modeler brush. If we go into frame mode, we can see the actual geometry. Now it's a little too dense, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to geometry and press reconstruct subdiv until we get down to just 4 faces. Now remember, Z Modeler doesn't like it if you have subdivision levels. If I try and use it, it's going to give me an error, as you see there. So just go ahead and click delete higher, and now we'll be able to actually use Z Modeler. So I'm going to solo this just so we see this polygon. Now the way edge extrusion works is you mouse over an edge and select extrude. Now you can set your target. Remember, your first menu here is your action, which is extrude. The second menu is your target, edge, edge loop, poly loop, and mesh border, etc. Then we have modifiers here. We can change, probably the most useful one to start with would be the angle. So I'm going to do the free angle and edge loop. So now if I mouse over this edge, click and drag, it's going to extend this edge. And as I move left and right, it's tapering because I have edge taper turned on. If I turn free sides on, I get this, where it moves the points in unison with one another. Now there's some hotkeys that are associated with edge extrusion, which are new in ZBrush 2020 as well, hotkeys in Z Modeler, where if I moused over this edge and I start to click and drag, if I tap the Alt key once, I can get the edge loop. Tap it again, or hold it, I can get the entire mesh border, like this. So let's undo that. Click, drag, press and hold Alt, and now I'm doing the entire mesh border. And if I carry on, it will continue doing that mesh border as a planar extrusion. So let's undo back to our original polys. Now if I mouse over this again, you see that if we tap Alt, we can extrude poly loop, and if we press Alt, we extrude poly loop, and Alt tap, we can switch between the edge and edge loop like we just did. Now, if we undo this, click and drag, you see that we've got our free angle. If I move to a 3/4 view and click and drag, I can control where I place this edge. But what if we want to change that extrusion? Press the space bar and we'll change from free angle to planar angle. Now if I click and drag, it's going to force this to be planar. It's not going to change the plane. If I change this to perpendicular and click drag, it's going to be perpendicular. Now I can press the shift key, and what that will do is it will change my extrusion angle. So each time I press it, it's going to change those angles. So you can actually move back in Z and Y depth as you do that. Once again, if we go to the back side, you're not going to see anything. So if you find that confusing, let's go down here and turn on double-sided under display properties. I find that can be really helpful to avoid getting winged edges, like you might end up with something like that. You just want to be careful, and you wouldn't necessarily see that if you didn't have your double-sided turned on, if you were looking at it from the other side. So let's undo back to our original polyquad. Here we go. And turn off solo. So we've got our handle here. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to extrude these faces up. So I'm going to go back to planar angle. Now I've got other options down here that I can change. I can do single row, or I can do num rows. No, that's number of rows. So if I were to change that and then click and drag, make sure that I'm on free angle, free sides. Oops, there we go. You see I've actually got a winged edge right there. Make sure that my double-sided is turned on. There we go. Now I can actually see it. So if I click and drag, I get this set number going up and down. If I hold down the control key and move my mouse left and right, I can change that value. So let's turn that up, hold the control key, and move my mouse up and down. I mean, not left and right. I can change that value. So I can turn that up or down depending on how far I move my mouse while I'm still holding down the control button. So I'm just going to go ahead and extrude this up a bit more. Click drag. Remember, if you press and hold Alt, you get the entire mesh border. If I press and hold Control, I can change the number of rows that I get when I do that extrusion. So what I thought would be neat is if we changed this blade from what we did in the last lesson, so we've got sort of like a curved bit coming off the tip here. So what I'll do is I'll grab this edge here and turn on X symmetry, and then if we click and drag, we're getting the entire edge loop. I don't want that, so I'll tap Alt once, and I'm just going to get that single edge. Now, I don't really want this many rows, so what I'll do is I'll go back and I can either change my rows manually here and do this, or I can again hold the control key and change it just by moving my mouse up and down. So I'm just going to move it to 1. Now, if we mouse over a point, we're just automatically defaulting to moving the points, as you see here. So if I click and drag this point, I'm moving this point around, and that is based on the brush size. So I can turn the brush size up and grab more than one point if I want to. So I'm just going to get a little bit of a narrower look to that. Maybe I want to expand these out a little bit. I'll turn my brush size up so I'm getting both those points, and we'll just pull these out like this. So it's kind of a real scary looking blade. We'll grab these points here and pull these down and pull these up, so we're getting a bit more of an aggressive kind of feel to this. Now I'm going to mouse over this edge, press the space bar, and I'm going to turn on taper sides. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to just change it to single row because I don't want to add any more rows in this. And I'm going to extend these ends out, and I can taper them. So I can bring this down to kind of a point here, like this. Now let's go up to the top. I'd like to add sort of a real wicked spike on the top. So let's zoom in and take a look at this. I'm going to grab these 2 points, bring them out, and then start bringing them together. And watch what happens when I bring these together. They snap and weld into a point. There. So there we've got the silhouette of our blade, but we don't have any thickness. I'm going to press the D key for my dynamic subdivisions. And then let's go to the geometry menu. And under geometry, we'll open up the dynamic subdivision level submenu here. Now you remember that we've got our Q grid and we've got our flat subdivisions. But what's important here is we've got thickness. So I'm going to turn thickness up. And now if you look, that gives us actual thickness to this dynamic subdivision level. So I can get something that feels a bit more like a thin steel blade. I can go to my flat subdivs, and I can change the type of subdivision levels that we're getting here. And we're still getting our thickness, as you see. Now, if we go back to our Q grid, oops, let's turn down flat subdiv and turn Q grid to 0. There we go. Now, if I zoom in on this edge, if you see, I have an option for segments, and there's one segment right now. If I take this slider and turn this up, I can get more segments along the thickness. So I'll set that to 2, so I just have one edge running right along the center edge of that blade. So now I want to turn this into actual geometry, or perhaps I want to change my thickness. I can always come in here and change this thickness before I bake this down into actual geometry. So we've got something along these lines here. Maybe I want to do another couple little changes to this. Maybe I want to grab these points here. Remember that these points are selectable, these little handles here. I can take this. I can insert an edge loop here, like that. I can mouse over these points here. Let's grab one there. And I can change that sweep, that angle there. Maybe I want to bring that out a little bit. There we go. Now when I'm ready to turn this into actual geometry, I just click the apply button, and that applies those subdivisions. Now I've got this edge loop that runs all the way around the blade, and this is really neat because this doesn't look like it's actually a sharp-edged weapon. However, if I take this edge loop and select it, make sure you might have to zoom in a little bit to get the edge loop. Press the space bar and we'll go to scale. Remember, these are in alphabetical order, so scale is right here, and I'll do edge loop complete. So if I click the edge loop and drag it out, I can scale out that edge. So watch that, I'll do it from this angle. We'll grab this edge here and scale it out, and then that's going to give us this nice sort of sharp edge there to that bit of geometry. So now it feels like there's actually sort of a blade there to be feared. There you go. So you see we get a nice little sharp bit there. So that's the fundamentals of using edge extrusion. One of the really neat things that we can do with edge extrusion is control the snapping and actually use it to do retopology by extruding edges. So let's take a look at how to now at how we can create new topology using edge extrusion with the Z-Modeler brush. So we're going to begin with this demo alien head, which you can download with the files for this chapter. I'm going to open up the subtool menu, and you see we've got the head and a pair of eyeballs. Now, the first thing I need to do is create a polygon from which I can start to extrude new geometry. Now, to do that, I'm going to use the Z-Remesh, or the topology brush. If I go to B for brush, T for topology, and select the topology brush, if I try and use this right now, it's not going to let me because I have multiple subdivision levels in this mesh. So what I want to do is create a proxy mesh with no subdivision levels just to draw these polygons on. So I will duplicate this subtool with the duplicate button right here and just turn off visibility on the other one. Let's go to the geometry menu and turn our subdivisions about halfway down, delete lower, and delete higher. So now we have no subdivs. Now the way the topology brush works is I draw curves like this, and then if I cross over those curves and create a quad, it will generate this preview quad in orange. Now I can carry these on and draw multiple quads like this. If I hold down the Alt key and click and drag across curves, I can delete curves. Now, we have a whole video just on the topology brush if you want to learn more about this particular brush, but we're going to use this in this case just to create a couple simple faces that we're going to use to then extrude the rest of our geometry from. So I'll draw a curve here, and I'll draw a curve here, and we'll just cross over, creating a quad, and then we'll just travel right through there and create another edge. So we've got two quads. Hold down the Alt key and just draw a curve somewhere else on the surface, and it will delete any of those hanging edges. So now I have a preview mesh. How do we turn this into geometry? If I hold down the Alt key and click on the model, it's going to mask the model and then show me the mesh it's going to generate. But it's in black right now, and it's black. I'm going to undo because my color here is black. So let's switch color. And I'll just make both of them white just to make it easier, and then Alt click, and now we can see it masks the head and then shows me the topology it'll generate. But it's giving it thickness, and I don't want thickness on this. So the next step, let's undo that. Turn your draw size down to 1, because what's happening is the draw size determines how thick the generated topology is. And if we set it to 1, it will just be a single set of faces. Alt click on the model, and now we have just those two quads. So what I want to do now is hide the proxy mesh. So I'm going to Control-Shift-Click on the model twice so I can just see the faces there. And let's hide the antenna because those also have polygroups, and we'll hide the ears. So the only polygroup visible now is that preview or that topology that we just generated. Now there's two ways I could go about this. I could go to Subtool Split Hidden under the split menu if I wanted to split this out from the proxy mesh, but I don't actually need the proxy mesh, so I'm just going to delete it by going to Geometry, Modify Topology, Delete Hidden. Now I'll turn back on visibility on the alien head. You see we've got our polygons there. I'm going to go down to my Tool, Display Properties menu, and we just want to make sure if double-sided is turned off, you see it looks like those faces disappear. So this is kind of a little gotcha that may happen. The normals are flipped. You see, we can see them there, but not on the outside where we want to see them. So we just click the flip button, and now we see those faces on the outside. Turn solo off so we see the head again. And I'm going to Alt-click on the head to select it, so make sure that the head is my selected subtool. There we go. Let's just go ahead and directly click on it. Turn off frame mode with Shift F. If you want to switch between your subtools, you can Alt-click to select them, but right now it's on the topology brush, so it's just giving me an error. So I'm going to make sure that I'm set to a different brush, and if I Alt-click on the topology, it selects that. Alt-click on the head, it now selects that. We don't need the color here, so I'm going to go to the Tool, Colorize, or Polypaint menu, and turn off Colorize. There we go. So now I don't see the color on the alien head. So I'll Alt-click on my preview, or on my initial topology there. And I'm going to turn on transparency and make sure ghost is turned off so I can actually see the faces. And then Shift F will turn on frame mode. Now what I want to do is start to use the Z-Remesh, or the Z-Modeler brush with Edge Extrusion. So go to B for brush, Z for Z-Modeler, and select Z-Modeler. Now, if I mouse over an edge or a face or a point, I can use Z-Modeler functions on them. So I don't want to actually do anything to the faces, and it's kind of easy to accidentally select one. So while I'm moused over a face, I'm going to press the space bar, and I'm going to set my polygon action to be do nothing. So then if I click on a face, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to actually do anything to a face. It's just going to switch to a different component. So if I go to the edge select, so right now I'm on do nothing, go to the edge, I want to change that to extrude. Go to point, and that should be move. Now on move, I'm going to turn this on to snap to surface. So if I click and drag on these points here, let me turn my draw size up now. If I click drag these points, they're going to snap to the underlying surface. So I can move these around a bit. And I just want to create a ring of faces going around the base of this antenna. So I'll click on an edge. Now, if I press the space bar, I am going to extrude an edge, and I want to make sure that I have snap to surface turned on. So now when I click and drag, it's going to snap to the underlying surface like this. And then if I mouse over this point, I can start to move these points around, get a nice evenly distributed set of faces here. Let's grab this edge, pull this over here, and then it's quite a simple task just to move this around and create this ring of faces. Get this point here and just make sure everything's sort of equidistant. Sort of the easiest way to deal with topology is just keep it real simple as you go. Don't overcomplicate things, because it'll just kind of bite you if you do that. You just want to keep it really simple, and then let your smooth later give you more of the resolution that you're looking for. So right there, that actually just snapped up to there. You see that? So what I'll do is I'll just mouse over that face and go to delete, and I can delete that face. Now I'll mouse over the face again and change that to do nothing. Let's go to this edge. Now if I take this point and move this point, I can make that snap to the other point like this. But I don't want that to be a really long face there, so let's undo that. And I'm going to bring this point down here, making sure that you move around things so you can make sure that you're not snapping to some unusual spot. Now I'm going to take this edge and I'm going to extrude it. There we go. Let's get this one. And you see as I move, it will snap to that edge there. Grab this point and I can snap it there. So now I have actually merged those points. Now if I grab this edge and drag this up, you see it's doing the entire edge ring. If I tap the Alt key, it goes back to a single face. Tap it again, and I get that whole extrusion like that. Now that's not quite what I want, because you see it's actually projecting through there. So what I will do is I will just grab this face, tap the Alt key, so I'm just extruding that up. And then I'll grab this one, extrude this up, and you see it's naturally snapping to that point. And I can grab this point and bring it up. Bring this over here, drag this up, and it's just naturally snapping. Make sure that I grab this point here and then move that. And then we'll grab this and bring this up. And if you just move it in close proximity to any of the other faces, it's just going to automatically give you a nice snap. So there we go. We'll grab this and bring that up there. And let's come around here to the back. Oop, there we go. We've got another sort of flipped face right there. I'm going to go back to my display properties and turn on double, and that's going to make it a lot easier to see problems like that. And I'll just click delete and get rid of that face right there. And then we'll go back to our edge, bring this edge up to here, move this point, and let's move this point. So as we're adjusting these things, we can start to shift these faces around. Looks like we've got a little extra bit of geo right there. Let's get rid of that and that. You want to be careful about those little winged edges there. There we go. And then I'm just going to grab this edge and bring it up to here, and it will snap. And then I need to get this point right over here. So let's go ahead. What I will do is move over here so I can grab this point right there, pull this over. And I just want to even all this out a little bit. Sometimes you just have to change your view a little bit so you can see things real clearly. So I'll grab this edge. If I tap the Alt key, it's going to grab both of those points. If I tap the Alt key again, it'll bring me back to just a single edge. So let's go ahead and just grab this edge, bring it up to here, bring this point up. And now I've just got this edge that I can bring over here, and I can snap. If I drag that right over to those points, it'll snap those together. Now, if I wanted to carry this topology out, I could click drag, tap that Alt key, and then I'm actually getting that full topology, or that full edge ring there. And you see it's snapping as best as it can to that surface. So let's go ahead and grab that, press the space bar. We're set to snap to surface. We're on free. And let's extrude surrounding faces. There we go. And you see that that's snapping to that surface. But right there, it's not. There you go. It didn't quite grab that point. So now if I grab the individual polys and move them, you see it'll snap them right down. Like this one right here, if I grab it, it snaps it right down to the surface. So let's say I want to mirror this across. So what I will do is I'm going to move this point, and let's say I want to bring this edge right across here, and I'm just going to allow that to cross over that center line. Do the same thing here. And we'll do one more here. Let that actually merge there. Now I will go to Geometry, Modify Topology, Mirror and Weld across the X-axis. And what it's going to do, it's going to take what's on this side and mirror it across. So if I click that Mirror and Weld, you see it's mirroring the other side. So I'm just going to go to the Deformation menu, mirror this, and then click Mirror and Weld. And now it's mirrored that topology, and it's given me a center line. So you can carry on extruding as you want with the X symmetry now turned on. You do this, grab these points, move that down, bring this point out, and as I move that closer, you see it snaps and welds to that point. And then I'll just grab these points and move them. Now, if I'm on the edge selection, make sure you have force symmetrical turned on, because that will force it to be symmetrical as you alter your faces here. So let's say I want to drag this down here and then drag this out here. And then that's going to give me that turn there, that star, where that edge is turning. And I can bring this edge down maybe to here. Bring this one down to here, do another one here. And then if I mouse over this edge, I can always go to Insert, make sure it's not Inset, but Insert, and I can click there, and then if I just move these points, they're going to naturally snap to the underlying mesh, because I've got Snap turned on. So I can bring this back, grab this point, oops, grab this point and just move that back and move that back. There we go. Now, if I wanted to perhaps do the sort of very, very familiar bandit's mask kind of look around the eye, I can just come in here, and what I need to do if I'm going to create a new bit of geometry here is draw a new bit of actual geometry. If I go to the topology brush, B for brush, T for topology, and select the topology brush, you see I can't actually do anything there because I'm not on that mesh. I'm actually on this mesh. So if I wanted to create a new piece to use to generate the eyes, which I would then connect to the rest of the mesh, I would just have to repeat that process by selecting the head, duplicating, let's turn off frame mode, duplicate the head, and just turn off visibility on the other one. Go to our geometry menu, and we'll just delete lower, delete higher, and I'm just going to create some faces to use for the eye. So I'll just draw a curve around the eye like this. And then I can draw another curve around that. And then I will connect them like this. And as I draw each connection, it's going to generate a quad. Alt, click, and drag to get rid of any extra geometry. Alt, click, and you see it gives me the thickness. I don't want that, so we'll turn our draw size all the way down. Alt, click, and now we actually have our bit of generated topology. So if I invert my mask, here's another way that you can hide and get rid of the proxy mesh. The proxy mesh is currently unmasked, so if I go to Tool, under the Tool menu, if I go to Visibility and click Hide Point, it hides the unmasked portion of the mesh. And then once again, I'll go to Modify Topology, Delete Hidden, and now I'll turn on Visibility on the main head and clear any sort of masking. And I'm going to take this and I am going to merge it down by going to Subtool Merge, merge down, click OK. Now I've merged that into the same bit of topology. So now what I can do is go back to my Z modeler brush, turn on frame mode, and they're different polygroups. If I want, I can merge the polygroups together by going to Polygroup, Group Visible. There we go. And now I will just grab this edge and make sure that I'm on that edge, and I am on Extrude, and then click Drag. Now again, you see what's happening is, if I click that, I'm not actually getting anything. So why would that be? Well, let's rotate around to the back, and let's turn off double-sided, and you see our normals are not consistent. It's easy enough to fix. I will just isolate this and flip that, make everything visible again, and now I have both bits of geometry visible. And I will go ahead and go to Deformation, Mirror, because I'm going to mirror this over again anyway, so I might as well put it on this side. Turn off Solo. Now I'll go back to my extrusion, and you see it's actually extruding, and there you see it snaps to that point, and if I drag that up to there, it'll snap to that point. I can drag these points. I need to turn my draw size up to grab them. I can drag these points out, drag this point out. Again, I think the best way to ever approach sort of any sort of topology task is just do your best to keep it real simple for as long as possible, because it's very easy to start getting lost in it and overwhelmed if you just make things too involved. I want to insert an edge loop here, so I'll just go to Insert and then click there, and let's insert another one here because we just need a few more points there to represent that eye. And then I'll take these points and move them here so we get a little bit better distribution. And we'll insert an edge loop here, grab this point and just pull it down. And grab this point. Make sure that we're getting the points and not the face. There we go. Drag these down. And you see what's happened here is these have merged together into a triangle, and I don't actually want that. I could take that point, and I could potentially split the point like this, or I could, there we go, or I could take the edge here and I could bevel it. So if I go to bevel, that. I could do that. It doesn't really quite solve the problem though, so the best thing to probably do in this case is to mouse over this face, delete it, delete this one, grab this point and go to move, make sure I'm over the point, and go to move this point back up here, and then I'll just extrude this face. So let's go ahead and extrude, bring this down, bring this point up here, make sure that we're on the point, and then I'll just bring this up until both of these merge together, and I'll just manually grab this point and drag it up to there, and now we've got a nice continuous quad. So let's drag this one up. I'm going to delete this face, and I'm going to click drag, and I'm going to tap the Alt key so I get the entire edge ring like this. And I'll do it again. So now we're getting that nice loop going around the face. So I'll grab this point here, move it to there, and you see it merges. Bring that up to here, and it's going to merge. Oops. And let's drag this one up to here. And we'll drag this one to here for right now. We'll drag this one to here. And then I can grab this edge and just tap Alt, and I'm not going to have to worry about getting the entire edge ring there. So we can grab this point and bring it to here, and then I will extrude this across. And we'll do the same thing here. I'll bring this across the bridge of the nose, let that merge, and once again we'll let that merge there. And I can insert an edge loop here. Just going to insert, click drag. And now what I want to do is I want to basically, let's grab this one, bring this down. We're not going to retopologize an entire head, but we are going to do just a little bit more here. There's other great resources to learn the ins and outs of the technical aspects of topology, but I did just want to show you that it is possible to build new topology using these tools. There we go. If I grab that, bring that up there, move this down, move this down. Okay, so now I've got, pretty ugly sort of big faces here. I'm going to mouse over this edge, and I'm going to change to move, and then I can just move this edge, just slide that whole edge, and I can slide this point. Just remember, we want to keep things pretty even. So let's grab this point, bring it over here. And let's grab this edge and go to extrude. Let that snap, and if it doesn't quite snap, you can always move it manually. You just grab that point, looks like that's fine. Grab this one, let that snap, and then grab this one and let that snap. Now I'm going to grab this edge and just move this edge by going to the move button here. Now I don't want to put it on the center line yet, because remember I'm going to let this cut right through and give us a nice midpoint. So I'm going to grab these points and move these. Now I'm going to mouse over this edge and insert, click there, and then I can just extrude this edge up or down, grab this one, go to extrude, bring that up, and that should merge. And if it doesn't quite catch right there, I can just manually grab that point and then snap it like this. And I'll do this one the same way, let that merge, and then manually scooch that point over. Now actually I don't want to do that. I want to cut another loop through here. So let's move this one back, move this one back. Make sure that we're on that point. Move this one, we're on the point, we're on move, yeah. And let's insert a new loop here. There we go, and now I will extrude this edge down to here. There we go. And I'll just grab this edge here. Oops, grab this edge, I'm going to move. I'm getting the wrong bit right there. So let's grab this edge, and keeps deleting on me. There we go. And I can scoot that over. Now, if I want to sort of globally snap things down to the surface, I can go to Tool, Tool, Subtool, Project, and then just click Project All. I'll turn off Color and Project All, and that will snap down any verts that are sort of hanging off the surface. Now, let's go ahead and grab these points. And basically what I want to do is I want to take what's going to be my midline and move it away from the midpoint. So let's grab this, move this over, let's move this over, move this point over, because it's going to cut a new edge line, a midline for us. So we just want to get these out of the way. So let's get this over here. You could even merge that if you want to. It doesn't matter as long as they are not sitting on the midpoint. Let's do this, bring that over here, bring this over here. Oops. There we go. And make sure that this moves over here. The whole idea is that we just want to get a big, clean face running down the center line, so when it cuts a new end, or it cuts a new edge, I should say, that it does what we expect it to do. I'm going to mouse over this and move that edge, and that just keeps deleting that. So we're just going to go ahead and go to Geometry, Mirror and Weld, and there we go. You see that just cleans that up and gives us that new topology. Mouse over this edge. If I want to insert another loop through there, I can do that just by clicking Insert Edge. Oops, that's Inset. It's easy to do if you need glasses. Insert, turn on X symmetry, and it'll do it on both sides. I can insert a new edge loop here. I can insert a new edge loop through here. Let's grab this one because that's giving me trouble right there. There we go. So you see, it's pretty simple to just go through here and generate new topology from a single polygon face on top of an existing mesh. You could do this for organics. You could also do this for hard surface. You know, we touch on various methods of retopology throughout this series. This is just one of them. We also have the topology brush. We have retopology with Z-Remesher. There's several ways at this point in ZBrush that you can approach creating new topology. And if you're coming from a background where you are familiar with Edge Extrusion as a retopology method, which has been around for ages, you might find this particularly comfortable. So the important things to remember, just to recap, when you're on an edge, spacebar, make sure you're set to extrude for your edge. And you can change your target. If I click and then tap Alt, remember I can change my target. Hold down Alt and it'll do that whole ring. If I take an edge like this, tap Alt again, so I get back to a single point or a single edge, I can move my points and they will automatically snap once they get into proximity. If I take this point and drag it all the way over here, I can snap that down as well, making a triangle. Let's undo that. So we're back to a quad. We can have planar angle or free angle turned on. If I have free angle turned on, it gives me sort of full freedom here to move my faces and edges around. So I can move that there and move that out here, and it is snapping to that surface. So let's go back over here and see what we get. If I take this edge and extrude this out, it's giving me free angle there. So I can very easily move things around, but I'll probably have to grab that point and manually snap it like that. If I have a planar angle, we've seen that, and if I have perpendicular angle, it's not really all that useful for retopology because that's just extruding a perpendicular sort of mesh. It's still snapping to the surface though, so really, usually you're going to be using free angle. Going back into our options here, remember that we have snap to surface. You really want that turned on if you're trying to conform it to an underlying surface. And you can adjust your attraction. I leave smart attraction turned on. I generally don't change these options. And for symmetrical, you generally want to have that turned on because you're probably going to be symmetrically retopologizing. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. These are some of the really cool things that are new in ZModeler. The edge extrusion is one that I think you're going to find really, really useful, as well as the mesh thickness, which we've also talked about, which definitely comes into play with cloth. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next lesson.